Looks like the recording just started. And so just take a moment to first just feel the contact of your hands on your heart center. Maybe you feel the beating of your heart. Maybe you start to bring your breath to gently touch your heart center. This is a really soft contact, so we're not making our hearts do anything, but we're just sending some softness to the heart center. Maybe some warm feelings arise. Allow yourself to sink in to whatever feelings arise from the heart. Just let that go. So tuning into the heart center helps us to realize that we can actually come to a place where we can find joy anywhere, because real joy does come from within. It comes from the heart. So the type of joy that we look for in the external, getting a really cool new thing, or um, having some achievement, or you know praise from people, getting some kind of positive, you know, experience or something. All of those things are fleeting. They come and go, and we may feel excited or exhilarated in the moment, but eventually that goes away, and we revert back to our typical habits of mind, our patterns of mind. But there is joy that can be accessed from within in the heart. And it can be replenished naturally, so we don't need to keep getting more money. It's like, well, I need more money or I won't be happy. But with the heart, it's like it can just replenish itself naturally. We don't have to make it, make it give us anything necessarily. So I'm curious to hear, does this seem possible? Does it seem possible to create your own joy from within? Does it sound challenging? Does it sound like that's not possible? I can't do that. That's too hard. There's no wrong answer. Yeah. Keep.
I think it's certainly possible to an extent. Like if there wasn't any food, right, it would be hard to find internal joy if like kind of your basic needs weren't being met. But I think generally in the States we have all that we need to meet the basic needs, so that we should be able to find joy.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, is that if someone is in a state of, if someone is in a state where they are constantly threatened, or they don't have their basic needs met, then it's quite a lot to ask them to sit and, well, just focus on your heart. That would be quite a big ask. Although not impossible. I just say that just to understand the greatness of what the Dharma can bring. But yeah, it's really hard to do that. But you're right in that, luckily for us, we're in a position where we're clothed, we're housed, and we get to come to the Nyingma Institute and hear the Dharma. And so we have that ability to take the time that we need to make those kind of internal shifts, or at least attempt to do so. And I'm also curious to hear what people experience from feeling their heart. Did you notice any shifts? Did nothing change, or, any other experience from that? Or another question, and this question I'm actually most interested in, is what happens if you allow yourself to believe that it's possible to have this reservoir of joy that can self-replenish and that you can access without needing the external environment to show you, certain things that you like to see, I guess. What does that feel like if you allow yourself to believe that? Yeah.
So I feel like once we start to consider that we have this reservoir of joy inside, I think it's great to get lots of reminders about it, or ways of tapping into it, which might be what some of the teachings can do for us. And sometimes it's easier than others, I think, to find it. Like if things are going really well, and it's kind of there automatically, I think. But then when they're not going well, then that's when I think we need to get those reminders or those methods of finding it.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. Is that, yeah, when things are going well, it's like, yeah, of course I can feel happy, But when things are challenging, then it's like all the joy is stripped from the world. Everything seems dark, and like I know that that's what I experience. It's just like suddenly everything, like food doesn't taste good, and like everything's going wrong, and like just the cat's bothering me. It's like any amount, these things that normally, I'm fine with or I enjoy, it's like suddenly they're bringing me like suffering. And So it really is those moments that we are suffering that we really need to practice, because that's where it's most fruitful. That's where we can gain the most from doing these practices. Um, and so we do that by encouraging our positive feelings. So, we have negative feelings, neutral feelings, positive feelings. And there's a state, obviously, of meditation where you can transcend all of those. But in the day to day, that's not so practical. So it is really helpful and beneficial to work with developing positive feelings. Um, and how do we do that? So we practice catching ourselves in moments of negativity, for instance. So when we find ourselves about to sort of lean into that negative pattern or that habit of mind or kind of, latch on to a negative thought that's bothering us, that's when we really need to catch ourselves and try to shift the positive if we can. And there's ways to do that. It's possible, even in those really tough moments, even in those really, really, really tough moments. It's hard, it's extremely hard, but it is possible. And the more we practice, the more we can be, we're almost like dancers, like the more we practice, the more we're skilled. We're skilled at doing that, catching ourselves in the moment and shifting to a more positive state. So we'll do that now. We'll practice that now. So once again, just becoming very comfortable. Allowing your breath to become soft. Allowing the tension in your body to melt away. And now, reflect on a joyful memory, or you can also reflect on a very beautiful place in nature or a beautiful place that you've seen before. Or it could be someone you love, someone who brings you a lot of joy, or a very beloved pet. Just anything that will stimulate feelings of joy, softness. If it's a memory that is kind of muddled with other emotions, maybe let that one go and find something that is a little bit more pure, like a beautiful redwood forest or the beach on a sunny day, feeling the warm sun just touch your skin. Allow your mind and body to slow down and relax. Notice what reflecting on this joyful memory or image does to your experience, does to your mind and body. And as the positive sensations start to arise, allow yourself to really savor them, really taste them, going deeply into those sensations, maybe even expanding them. Sensations might become very rich, almost like warm milk or just a deep vastness. And any other thoughts or emotions or negativities, just allow them to melt into these positive feelings. So I'm curious to hear how this practice went for y'all. Was it helpful in shifting your emotional state? Was it difficult? Was it just kind of didn't do anything?
I had a couple of experiences come up, but it had a different experience with each of them. Like the images that came up were like one was uh, spending time with my nephew and how good that felt, and then also the maybe strong attachment or like the flip side. I felt the flip side of it as well, versus maybe something a little more pure when you were like being in a redwood grove or something like that. That felt more, I don't know, enduring or something less like maybe something that had less of the flip side to it. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but yeah, it was interesting to feel the things that produce positive emotions sometimes, but also there can be some residue of negativity to it as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation. Yeah, which is why it's so interesting because we're developing positivity, but then at the same time, we're letting go of our attachment. So it almost kind of feels sort of contradictory in a way because we're so used to our attachments being the things that we think generate the positivity, which is why it is helpful to start with those things. Start with visualizing things that do generally bring that positive feeling. Because it's almost like a learned it's almost like an emotion that's stored, and we can recreate the emotion with by triggering that memory or that image. But yeah, I do think ultimately it's helpful to start with those kinds of images, and then eventually get to a place where the joy is like self-arising, where we don't need those, but we have to start somewhere. So yeah, so it's okay that there's still some attachment with the like happy memory, there's nothing wrong with that. Like it's okay. Any other responses? Yes.
My session went through a couple of different journeys, I guess I'll say. The first was very physical. When I focused on my center and my heart and really connected with the joy, it felt very physical. Like my body felt warm. And immediately my body relaxed, tried to relax into it. And then as I was trying to find sort of the vision, I thought of my dog, and it just filled me with just warmth and joy, and just the memory and the vision of her. And at one point you said, it starts to get a little complex and you move away, and she passed. So feeling started coming through, and I felt the attachment as well. But the joy is really an interesting state, because for me there's a lot of attachment, but it also comes with fear, and the fear of not having that attachment. So that moment where I just very intentionally released her but stayed with the joy, really then started to kind of, in this almost energetic way, like to just expand. And I just felt sort of my energies, like just expand out even more. And then it kind of rose above the physical and sort of the tangible memories into more of this vibrational state. So it was really cool.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome. That's a really awesome observation. Because that and it sort of is very helpful also for what Van was saying about feeling the attachment with the happy memory or thinking of the person, in that we use that as a way in, but then there is a stage where we can let it go and we can just feel that joy just kind of expanding on its own, and it's just this self-arising joy, joy for no real reason, but it just kind of is self-evident, I guess you could say. So that's really great to hear that you touched into that experience. And so we're going to circle back now to what Max was talking about at the beginning, which is that a really important reason we want to cultivate joy is to be able to give it to others. So we're not cultivating joy so that we can just hold on to it and never give it away, and like, this is my joy, don't, then like somebody comes and tries to ask you for a favor and you're like, no, like don't disturb my joy. It's, we want to share it with others, and I think sometimes it can almost be confusing, or maybe sometimes you hear people say like, well, I can't be happy because other people are suffering, you know, or like I can't be happy because of I heard this in the news. And that's just unfair for me to feel happy when these people are suffering so badly. Um, and I think that comes from a compassionate place. But um, when we really understand how joy can be beneficial for not just us, but for others also, then we see that actually cultivating joy within ourselves um, is not a selfish act, but it can be selfless. You know, if we use the right intention. Because think about it, you know, think about the times where you felt so miserable and down and just low, and like we've all had those times. You're just like, I can't do anything right. I'm just, you know, I'm garbage, you know. I mean, I've definitely had those times. But you know, how much were you able to benefit another person when you felt that way? You know, um how much value were you able to bring to another person's life in those states? And this isn't to kick ourselves or to make us feel bad about the fact that we can, you know, have those low moments, but it's just about recognizing what's helpful versus what's not helpful. And ultimately, when we feel joy, when we feel really nourished, when we feel really full and satisfied, then we can walk into a room and we can see how that can positively influence others. And we can see how even just the energy of that, that people feel it. You know, you come in smiling and people smile back at you. You know, it's contagious. Like we are more connected than we know, and we feel each other more than we really know. And so it is actually very important for us to first cultivate joy within ourselves, to then be able to extend that out to others and really be of benefit, you know, in a real way. Um, so we're going to do one last short practice. So coming back into your comfortable seat. So see if you can come back to that feeling from earlier. You can go back to the same memory if you like, or you can use a different one, or just something. Even if just the feeling is still there, you can just contact the feeling. And once you've contacted those positive feelings again, just mentally share it with others. You can do it very simply with just a wish that others feel this joy, that others also have this joy. Might be easy to start with sharing this joy with those that you already love, those that you have care and warmth towards. then you might want to expand it out further, maybe to acquaintances, people you don't know, maybe even people that you dislike that have done harm to you or done harm to others or the world. But if that's too hard for now, you can just start with those you care about, those you love. Maybe you notice that as you share the joy with others, that the joy actually expands and becomes larger. So, are there any final reflections, any last comments anyone wants to make before we end the session and dedicate the merit? Yes, keep going.
I liked this mix of discussion and practice.
Oh,
I
great.
think it's like a nice way to spend an hour on a Sunday.
Awesome. Yeah, I agree. Any other final thoughts or? Oh, thank you. I'm also very grateful that all of y'all are here, and it makes it a lot more fun to do these practices with other people, I think, and the cat who decided to join and now is sitting right up there. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think, I mean, in the last practice, I just felt like this, you know, the book I was reading just a little bit earlier, they talked about, you know, this precious human life and how much of a gift it is, but and you never really, if you don't contemplate it, you can really easily forget that. And I just felt that emerge in my heart, you know, that, wow, you know, we're alive, I'm alive, we get to practice, and yeah, and that felt like maybe the most enduring out of all of those things, right? Like that feeling. And so, yeah.
That's so great. That's really nice to hear, and yeah, I agree that I think doing these practices and having this intention to cultivate joy in the moment, it can really cut through some of these like this crust, you know. It's like almost like we have this crust on us where it's just like I can't be happy right now, you know, like things aren't the way I want them to be. But just by spending an hour doing some of these practices, we can kind of just cut through and then like it sounds like for you just have this naturally arising just appreciation. Okay, well, let's go ahead and dedicate the merit. So all this positive energy that we generated today, we send it out to all sentient beings or anyone in particular, and remembering that sentient beings are very, very precious, even the ones we don't like. and that everyone is worthy of happiness. Om. Okay. Thanks everyone. Thanks everyone for coming. And thanks everyone online for coming too.